Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody in between, welcome to another episode of the Chaps Chat Cats. We are part of the Hoops Crew Media Network. My name is Jake, and I'm joined in the virtual studio this evening, Monday the 4th of March, by the one and only Mr. Johnny Larkin. How are you, Johnny?
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good, can't complain. A bit of sport on the weekend, even though it was just some preseason games. But it was good to have football back. What seemed like a proper game of football anyway. None of that match sim, half-assed stuff we had last week. A bit more of a hard hit out of the game. And it was good to see. I enjoyed the game. How's your week?
Absolutely. Good. Yeah, good. Got some sport in, been watching some biathlon. The season, sadly, only a couple of events left now. They've just finished in Oslo, which was fun, and on to an event in Canada and the US. I don't think we should end the season in Canada and US. I think we should sprinkle those throughout, but no one on this podcast wants to hear about it. What you do want to hear about, of course, is what's on the show tonight, and that is the Cats v Essendon preseason recap. That's what you're here for, and that is what we're going to deliver at the end of the public show. We're going to cross over into the Patreon part of the show. We're going to do our weekly Patreon player focus on Mr. Ollie Dempsey. So if you want to watch that part of the podcast, if you're watching on YouTube, if you want to listen to that part of the podcast, if you're currently listening on Spotify, then go on over and sign up to the Chaps Chat Cats. No, not the Chaps Chat Cats. I'm still in that habit. John, go and sign up to the Hoops Crew.
Old podcast. Not them bastards at the Chat Cats, the Hoops Crew.
I know. What pricks.
I know,
go on over to the Hoops Crew Patreon and sign up there, starting with plans from as low as $5 Australian per month. You can get a free week trial if you want to have a crack at it. Extended podcasts. You get early access to different things. You get VFL coverage this year of both the men's and women's. So it's pretty much just extra shit out of the wazoo.
And it's cheap.
It's pretty fantastic, John.
$5 at cheaps.
Exactly. It's as cheap as a cup of coffee these days. Probably cheaper. I don't know.
Most likely cheaper.
It is cheaper. I think it is cheaper.
Yeah,
definitely cheaper than a cup of coffee.
Yes.
Absolutely. It's $5 cheaper than a cup of coffee. Let's crack into it, John.
What kind of cup of coffee? So you're getting for $10?
Oh, they're pretty special. A bit of gold leaf on them.
Yep.
Avocado lattes. Definitely.
Is it
when I put my hair up in a man bun?
Hand squeezed milk from the cow's udder, fresh. So they've just got the cow in a shelf and behind them, and they just got. Yeah. They don't even. They don't even have to warm up the milk on the coffee machine. They just have to get one of those frothers and froth it up, pre-warmed. Then what more? I can see why you pay $10 for a coffee that way.
It's true. The goat is actually one of the God of Thunder, Thor's goats that they got from Valhalla. They brought it back down, the latte is squeezed, frothed, and heated straight from the udder. It's a miraculous process. So well worth the 10 buckaroons. Let's get into it, Johnny, on the show. As we talk about Cats v Bombers, they played in the preseason, the unofficial official opening of the Joel Selwood stand. Got a glimpse of the standing room seating, which is where I will be. Well, it's not standing room seating, the standing room standing, where I'll be standing.
I'll be the one seating.
You'll be the one seating. Probably sipping one of those goat's milk lattes with gold leaf in the whatever stand you're sitting in. So yeah, the stadium. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, no doubt.
It's a classy town.
The Selwood stand looks good. I can't wait to stand in the Selwood stand and hopefully cheer a massive flogging of the Saints. But before we get to that, let's talk about what happened in this game. The Cats kicked the first 2 goals of this one. Tommy Hawkins slotted one after 7.5 minutes. We had another goal to Tyson Stengel after 14.5. It looked like it was going to be an easy roll for the Catters, but then almost out of nowhere, the Bombers snagged the next 4 goals of the game, Johnny, to start to blow the lead out to multiple scores. They were using a high possession style of footy, which they were very willing to use all day, changing directions with short kicks, and really controlling the ball. And Geelong were having a hard time defending it. I noticed a couple of spots, Johnny, where there was the opposition attacking, and we had waves of midfielders running behind their players who were attacking side of our defensive 50. And I was thinking, this is a little bit too familiar to a lot of games, particularly in the second half of last season, particularly in the last quarter of the season. A steadier before quarter time to the one and only Tom Stewart. And I swear it was just the pleats in my pants. That's how they made from the pants store. The Cats got another one midway through the second quarter to Shannon Neal. The Bombers responded with a couple of quick ones. Geelong got one back with Max Holmes. It was back and forward scoring, and they win it at halftime. 48 to the Bombers, 45 to the Cats. Geelong trailing by just the 3 points. And again, it was the Bombers who kicked away across the third term. They added a goal to Jade Gresham at 5.5 minutes. And they added another one. There was a good period after a behind to Patrick Dangerfield at the 7-minute, 16-second mark to the 18-minute, 11-second mark. 11 minutes without any scoring. Darcy Parish added a goal. Thereafter, Geelong really took control of the match, Johnny. They kicked a flurry of behinds to end the third quarter, and then they really rolled to the finish line. They kicked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 goals in a row in the last quarter as the intensity lifted. Nick Hind got one back for the Bombers late, but the damage had been done, and Geelong had stormed home across the final third of the game, really, the second part of the third quarter through to the finish line. Geelong ended 11-17, 83 to 10-11, 71. Your general thoughts to start us off, Johnny? Thoughts, feelings, observations? Have at
it. General thoughts was a decent, half-decent hit out. They seemed all right. They seemed pretty settled, and didn't seem to really buy into getting too serious about this game as like they did in the match sim. A bit more active, a bit more putting their best foot forward, especially the young guys. But overall, I didn't really see much that led into seeing what the full strength Cats could be. But what we did see was really promising, especially from the young guys. And if they fix up that, if they kick those behinds, which I'm pretty sure about at least 10 of those 17 goals could have been goals and ones that the players most likely would go back and go, how did I miss that? So it could have been a much bigger margin to the Cats if they had their kicking boots on, but no one really did in that second and third term, which is a bit of a worry, but it's also just pre-season. But if that does continue on through the year, then that's going to be a frustrating year for sure, but I'm not too worried about that. But yeah, I really had a great time watching it. I was a little bit frustrated early on, just by the defense going, oh, come on, guys, pick it up a bit. And then I had to remind myself, pre-season, we don't need any injuries of players doing stupid things like other players have done in pre-season games. And they just did what needed to be done. But I really did like that last quarter. At the end of the third and the start of the last, where they just took control, and you could see that shift as they slowly just took it out of Essendon's hands and started doing what they wanted to do. And the most pleasing part was a lot of the drives inside 50 weren't by Dangerfield, wasn't by Duncan, wasn't by Tui, wasn't by Stewart. It was led by Clark, Holmes, Bose, Dempsey, Atkins, Close. It was all these the next group of guys coming through that were really driving that. So that really pleased me as well. That we weren't relying on the senior guys to get it inside 50. We were relying on the young guys to put it in there. So yeah, it was not pleasantly surprised, but just happy to see that nothing's gone wrong for the Cats this preseason. These preseason games, they all look pretty fit and healthy, and they're all looking like they're raring to go. So yeah, pretty happy.
30.9% of Geelong's inside 50s came from Max Holmes with 7, Ollie Dempsey with 5, and Jack Bose with 5. So that's nice. Close to a third from those 3 players. And they are Ollie Dempsey's definitely a player I think you want putting the ball inside 50 in terms of how creative he is. But yeah, I think you said it right, John. Like that once Geelong were on a surge, particularly in the last quarter, I thought you could see like there was 11,000 fans in there, and I thought, wow, if this is at 40,000 or whatever, capacity, and Geelong are on the charge, it's made what was already a pretty tough home ground environment like that much tougher. I don't know if it's just that end's a little bit more closed off and roofed. The sound just sounded like it sort of held and sort of reverberated around a little bit more. Like 11,000 sounded really loud, and I envisage this team getting on a lot of rolls with that crowd behind it and just slaughtering teams or mowing them down from behind. So very exciting from that point of view. I was just going to flick up some of the key sort of numbers here for the Cats, the individual numbers from this game. As I said, they won 11-17-83 to 10-11-71. The Cats, just to comment, Johnny, they kicked across the second and third quarter. They kicked 3 goals, 12. So, not ideal. And I suppose that's something I might talk about a bit later, is you definitely want to stamp that out. But Tyson Stengel, 3 goals, 1. Thought he played essentially an A-plus small forwards game, buzzed around, took his chances. Tommy Hawkins, 1 goal, 2. Sean Manor, a single goal, and a number of other single goal kickers for the Cats. Max Holmes, 29 touches. Probably talk about him a bit. Mitch Duncan, 21. Mark Blixarves, 20. We won't worry too much about the old opposition stats, but that's,
No.
I
tell you,
I thought it was an interesting. Yeah, go.
Just gonna give Colin a bit of a go here. He's stuffed up to this thing already. First practice, second
Colin.
practice match. Colin,
Bloody
where's
hell,
the 1? It's 17 behind, it's not 7. Jesus, Colin.
Yeah, you're a
really
kinder man than me. Like I was gonna let Colin off with that one, Johnny. But like, look, to be honest, you're holding him to a high standard, and I appreciate it.
Eagle-eyed supporters are gonna see that and go, "What's going on here? Why is that not correct?"
Right.
So bloody silly Colin. So
there's a lot of apologies going on in the footy at the moment. We just, as a show now, as a network, we have to apologize for Colin's work here. We're really working on Colin here at the Hoops Crew, and he still falls short. We have lofty expectations for him, and even when we lower those expectations, he still falls short. So I don't know what we're going to do, to be honest, but he keeps sticking around. So
now we need to really lower our standards for Colin then, because it's
just like ankle height expectations of Colin. What did you think, Johnny? I want to start. Let's start positive, because there's a thing I want to ask about that's just, I don't know, trying to put some sober glasses on a couple of things. But we'll save that for the middle. We'll do compliment sandwich. We'll do something positive, then we'll get into something maybe a little bit less so, and then we'll get into positive. So let's start on the positive, and that, as you alluded to in your sort of opening statement, was the performance of some of the younger players, and not just younger players, the performance of some of the fringe players or the mature rookies who are new Cats. Whether it's Jai Clark or Ollie Dempsey, opinion divided. I thought Tanner Bruin actually had a really good game, but I saw some feedback maybe the other way on Twitter from a few people. Sean Manor buzzed around, did a bit of stuff. Massive game for Max Holmes, obviously, who is young. You know, he's not a rookie, but he's in that sort of early 20s bracket. Jack Bose, I think Jack Bose is actually older than Max Holmes. But anyway, point being, I don't know where you want to start or who you want to talk about, but let's talk about that youth influx at the Cats, or at least the new Cats.
Well, I think we can save Dempsey for the Patreon. You know, entice people to the Patreon. We'll talk about him there, so I think we'll save him for there. I'm going to start with, I think, Max Holmes, the obvious elephant in the room, and I just really loved that position where he started. I think last week it was a bit iffy, him starting off the back line, and it didn't seem like there was much benefit from that sim match. It was like, what's he gaining out of this? What are the Cats gaining out of him being there? Because we didn't see any run. If we did, it was a bit misdirected. The kicking wasn't fantastic, which you get in a match sim. But I tell you what, after this game, all those ideas of him not being suited for that halfback was completely chucked out the window after this game, because he was pretty dynamic, pretty sensational coming off that back line. And the absolute great part was seeing the other players, especially Jai Clark. I think I saw Jai Clark handball it to him after he got a free kick that 3 times. I don't think it worked every time. One time, I think Holmes was a bit too far ahead of the ball.
Trouble.
Sold him into trouble, and Holmes sold himself into trouble. But there was other times where it worked really well, where Max Holmes was just able to run and outpace the Essendon supporters, except for that Essendon players, not supporters. Except that one time when he did get run down. But just seeing him explode over the halfback and have that confidence in himself, that he's going to get around that play on the mark. He's going to out sprint them. He's going to outrun them, and then to look for a pretty good ball inside 50. And I tell you what, if he does that during the season, he's going to become a big headache for a lot of teams, because he's quick. His kicking was pretty good. I think it was 82%, and out of his 12 kicks, 8 were effective. And a lot of those kicks were off those runs where he was going full tilt and belted it inside 50. So yeah, and then when he was inside in the midfield as well, he was still having a massive effect on the team. So I think all of Cam Guthrie not playing for 8 to 10 weeks, a bit of my trepidations or worries about not having Cam Guthrie there, seeing the way Max Holmes played, definitely relieved a lot of that for me. And I think it was just a really positive foot Max Holmes put on, confidence boosting game for himself and the team, and one I hope to see throughout the entire season, because he looks like he was having a blast off that halfback and just doing what he wants to do and what he can do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like it's sort of there's a few angles in which you sort of probably find it heartening, I guess. So his disposal efficiency was the 82%. His kicking efficiency was down at 66.7%, but 66.7%, if he went at a season at 66.7, that would be a career best season. And this is something I was talking about with a few people last week, was his kicking, and there was some feedback saying he's a bad kick, he's this, he's that. I think, and I chatted about it a bit on Twitter, was, to me, Max Holmes isn't a bad kick of the footy. And I sort of liken it to, like, if you watch the NFL or something, say you've got a quarterback who's completing 55% of his passes or something, he's turning it over. You've got to look at what's happening. What's the context in which the throws are happening? Are they aggressive throws? Are they aggressive? They're high risk, high reward. And I think that's the thing with Max Holmes. I think we forget he's still quite a young player. He's early in his career. He's a player who's missed time with injury, but most importantly for me, it's a variance thing. He can have an absolute stinker of a kick, and then he can have an absolute, stunner of a kick. There's a kick that stands out to me if you think back to early 2022 against Collingwood when Geelong are surging in that last quarter to run them down in round 3 or whatever it was that we played them. Max Holmes has a kick where he's on the wing. He absolutely, I think it's to Jeremy Cameron, lasers a kick just to absolute perfection to Cameron leading up from the 50. And it's like full pace just hits this beautiful kick. And that to me is what you have to keep in mind with Max Holmes. It's a high variance thing. What you're trying to do is raise the floor a bit so you get a little bit less of the shit and make some of those ceiling kicks more consistent and happen more often. And I think if he was hitting 60 to 65% of his kicks, that's plenty because he's so damaging. Like he's not trying to hit a target that's 10 meters away or 20 meters away. He's trying to hit a target that's 40 meters away to unlock the attack. So it's the context matters.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure he laid a laser kick to Shannon Neal in the practice match. But Shannon Neal just wasn't able to get the Essendon player shutting down really well. And he saw Shannon Neal going, I should have put my hands out and not let it come to my chest. But it was that kick. I was like, that's a kick that's got to be really hard to defend. If Shannon Neal was able to get there first. But the Essendon player was a really good defender, cut it off. But yeah, as he said, he's got laser kicks, he's got long high kicks, but even those long high kicks going inside 50, they're still a nightmare to defend. Especially if you've got Hawkins, Shannon Neal, or Jeremy Cameron, or Oliver Henry, or Gary Rowan charging at the back. Especially if it's Tom Hawkins. You're going to be going, what's coming behind me? You're going to be a bit worried. And yeah, it's still a dangerous kick. And if one of those players doesn't mark it or defense doesn't mark, it's still going to fall on the ground for close. Stengel, Myers, and all these others. So even those ones that aren't 100% effective, they still can pose a pretty big threat. Especially if he's coming off the halfback, sprinting at full pace, and just bombs it inside 50. Your defense may not be set up properly. They may not have time to set up for those long kicks. So yeah, I think I'm saying with you, his kicking may not be perfect, but the way he plays, they don't need to be perfect. Just needs to get him inside 50, and chaos could happen.
Yeah, and as we said, it's all about context. We're not looking for Max Holmes to kick at 80%, like someone like Tom Stewart might. No. We're looking for Max Holmes to probably kick maybe mid-60s would be a good game. Yeah. If he could reach mid-60s with consistency, that's excellent. Last year he averaged 57% by foot. So you just want him to lift somewhere up into the 60s, and I think that's fine. But I thought this week, Johnny, you saw what the Cats saw with it, with the move for Holmes. Like, he can be a total game changer for Geelong coming off half back. He had 500 plus meters gained halfway through the game.
Oh, yeah. 645 with 65% of time on the ground. So he did all that, 29 disposals, 12 kicks, 17 handballs, 4 marks, 4 clearances, a goal. He spent 65% of time on the ground. That's a fair go for a young player as well.
And what's the willingness to rotate guys? Like, people were saying, maybe like Atkins or whoever. There was more Clark, Bose, Bruin. They're only getting 60% game time, whatever. And I don't think that'll really change. I think they'll fluctuate around that 60-65%. Geelong, like all teams, if you can rotate your midfielders, why wouldn't you rotate them? What
Exactly.
What I liked about the Holmes thing, Johnny, was that I think it opens a spot. And I know we're going to get to him in more depth, but I think it opens a spot for Ollie Dempsey on the wing
Oh, yes.
because instead of Max Holmes playing, on the wing or whatever, you can play Dempsey there, and I I think you started to
If
see like what
if
he can bring, and it was really exciting.
if that was a taste of what Oliver Dempsey is gonna bring the Cats, then I'm gonna sit down for a 20-course meal, 24-course meal, and just savor every bite. That's exciting. It's exciting, but join the Patreon to hear our 100% thoughts on it.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll get into a full proper deep dive on our thoughts of Ollie Dempsey's game,
What about you,
and what he
Jake?
can do for the Cats this season.
What's the
What a
player
player
that
that stood out.
impressed you?
Um, there were a few, honestly, but I do want to talk about Jai Clark because I think
Yeah,
if Jai Clark begins across this season to start to live up to the billing, which is massive, and it's why I don't like this pressure, that from people. Like, Jai Clark's going to come in and save us, and it'll be fantastic. Let's not act. Let's not take
that's
the point of view that those clubs like the West Coast do. Like
yeah.
Harley Reid's he's gonna totally reshape the club. Allow the
First
talented
off,
player to come in and develop them. Yes.
the Cats don't need to be fucking saved, so
Mm.
don't even think that because the Cats are perfectly fine. And same as you, why put all this pressure on this guy when no pressure needs to be put on him? Put it
Mm.
on senior guys who can handle
Definitely.
that
And I
pressure.
and I think like we'll get to that in the middle part of this show. I think there's a couple of senior guys who I think if there were some players on the squad who maybe played their position could be under a little bit of threat. Um, but let's talk more about Jai Clark. I thought you could see everything. To be honest, that's the best game I've seen him play, VFL or AFL. I don't really think he had a game last year in the VFL that I watched, and I'm pretty sure I watched all of his VFL games last season. He only played 6 of them. Um, I didn't see him play a game better than that. That's as confident as I've seen him look. Now, to start the game, he was quiet, and I was thinking, oh, are we going to get another just kind of nothing kind of game where we're like, I kind of don't really see it happening, and no, we didn't. We got a game where it was like, okay, there we go, as advertised. And I know people look at the disposal numbers and say, oh, well, he only had, what was it, 17 touches.
Um,
Um, he did. He had 17 touches, 7 kicks,
17, yeah.
10 hand passes, couple of marks, 4 tackles, 4 clearances, spent 69% time on ground. But he also led the Cats with 5 free kicks won. And although I don't think this is particularly important in terms of this is not where I want him to be all the time, also led Geelong in disposal efficiency, 94.1%. And as I said, I don't think that's the be all and end all. I think you would expect him to be more down near your sort of mid 60%,
Yeah.
um, maybe
Plus,
low 70s or something like that.
plus equal first
Years.
in center clearances as well.
Yep.
3 center
Uh,
clearances. What else? Six
and
intercept possessions.
led the Cats in contested possession. There was a number of things that he did that just really impressed me. And his kicking efficiency, 85.7% on his 7 kicks. So there was lots of that. But to me, it was a looks thing. It wasn't a numbers thing, really, Johnny. It was the
Yeah.
fact that we had moments where he worked himself into the game with his pressure and defensive work rate. There's a clip I put up on Twitter, and the Cats I just saw have now put up a full little highlights package of his best moments from the game. And like he was exceptional. That one on the wing or sort of down wing forward 50, back 50 rather, where he chases like 4 or 5 times as Essendon, I think it's Essendon trying to come out of their back 50 and forces the turnover. Sorry, no, it is Geelong trying to come out of their back 50. So they're trying to do the ring around the rosy thing where they hand pass it around him, and you just watch him repeat effort, repeat effort, repeat effort, repeat effort, holding the ball tackle. He catches another guy holding the ball earlier in the game. He gets Goldstein holding the ball on the wing later in the game. He was everywhere there. There's a great moment where Stanley taps it down to space and Jai Clark just hits the center stoppage at speed and gets the ball, handballs it out to the wing. It was funny to me because there was a lot of tweets this week saying he's just got to slow down how he moves the ball. And it's so funny because everything else I've watched him up until this point has been he moves it too slowly. Like that's always been my sort of feeling about him watching him last year. It's like he always thinks he's got 1.5 seconds when he only has half a second. And he gets caught holding the ball. He gets caught, and we have to settle for stoppages instead of breaking away from congestion. He needs to speed it up. I love the way he moved the ball fast, and that doesn't mean you got to move it fast every time. But the fact that he was operating from a place where he felt he looked more in the speed of the game is what I would say. He felt like he understood the flow of play and loved the play on quick, move it quick. And I'll just finish with this. The pressure's great. The clearance is great. The tackling's great. All that is amazing. You watch one of the last things in the highlights package Geelong put up is Jai Clark running into the forward 50, could blaze away and have a shot. Instead, he steadies himself, lifts his eyes, hits up Ollie Dempsey in the pocket. Pretty sure Ollie Dempsey goes back and snaps the goal.
He does.
From the set shot. And it's that moment of poise for me from Jai Clark that is what can help make him special, because everything else is great. But if you can bring high levels of pressure, high levels of intensity, win clearances, win the footy, and then follow it up with poise and sensible decision making, that can put you in a whole different category of player. So it's early days. Let's not pin the whole hopes of the season on what Jai Clark does, but I thought it was hugely, hugely promising from him, Johnny.
Oh yeah, definitely. Agree 100%. I agree with everything you said, especially the moving the ball on fast. As I was saying, when he did with Max Holmes a few times, sometimes it didn't pay off, but at least he was brave enough and aware enough that Max Holmes is quick. Max Holmes is fast. Max Holmes is going to be able to outrun someone. He's just like, stuff it. I'm just going to give it a go. And I think if the coaches are going to, I believe the coaches are going to go, Beauty, keep doing that. Keep backing that yourself to handball it off to someone who's on the run or on a tear. Don't be afraid to do that, because it looked so natural for him and looked so just the way he wants to play. And yeah, since when it was a sim game, since then and this game, he's just gotten better. And he's just got made aware of how the game moves around him. And yeah, sometimes it looked like he was running around like headless chook, but he was still adding pressure to everything. It wasn't just senseless run to this guy. Oh, I missed it. I'll run back. It was sort of like, where's the ball going next? And then he would sort of go to that spot. It wasn't just, ball watching. It wasn't just ball watching the whole time. It was sensible use of his energy and effect, and it paid off. 5 free kicks. What more could you ask for a young guy who's played one AFL game before he got injured in the first 20 minutes of his game? So really looking forward to seeing him apply his trade over the season. And
I
don't see why people will be criticizing him so much yet.
I think what the Cats need to do, and this is just the topic I wanted to bring up. It's not like super negative. It's just like I was thinking back to last season and going, what this game to start with reminded me of some things from last year. and I was trying to sift through my brain today and go, what was it about it? And it was how we were failing to defend their transition from defending into attack. Um, where it seemed like we couldn't get it inside 50 and they were just turning it over and then just running past us and running through us. And it took me back to the Fremantle game over there where they really controlled us. It was as bad as I said at the time, it was as bad as I've seen Geelong look. Since we've been winning flags, was those times where they were just totally in command. So there was a bit of that. And I thought there was some of that, Johnny, when you look at the disposal numbers against both teams, in that Essendon had 5 players with 25 touches or more. They had 7 players with 20 or more. Geelong only had 4 players go over 20 disposals. Essendon had 2 guys go over 30. Geelong didn't have any players go over 30. And I thought it was one of the hallmarks of last year that our inability to have those players like your Darcy Parish, who won, 34 touches and 6 clearances here. If you don't have those players, if you can't win it out from the middle, and that's what was happening when Essendon were dominating, we were getting smashed around the stoppages, particularly I think it was the first quarter. It was so lopsided, and then we got that back on our terms, but they were still using that precise ball movement. But I do think there's a concern there for me still that's going to need to be addressed across the season, which might just happen from players stepping up. But when you look at the difference, I think it was 2022, you go from being like top 6 sort of team in disposals, top 6 team in clearances. And then last year it was just a drop off where we're like bottom 6 in both categories and really low in uncontested possession. And remember, we talked about all the time last year, we can't manufacture uncontested ball. We can't get it out to our playmakers, our creative players to damage the opposition. And it's just, we have no ability to do that, consistently. I think that's why it's important it's why there's such a microscope for me, Johnny, on players like Atkins. Not a microscope, but the focus is Atkins, Bruin, say Bose, Jai Clark, those type of players, because Dangerfield can't carry the whole thing on his own. And so I don't know what your thoughts are on it, but I think that's something that seriously needs to be addressed, because despite how crap we were in those areas last year, we still were like top 4 for the amount of goals kicked on average per game. Like, we still feasted on on a diet. We still produced results despite the Fords being on a massive diet of good supply. What are your feelings around it? Do you think we're going to see a turnaround? How much of a turnaround do you think we need in terms of those players? How many of those guys do you think need to step up to help Danger? Is it all of them, or is it like if 2 of those guys can do it, if 1 of those guys can do it? What are your thoughts?
Oh, it definitely needs to be fixed up because we don't want
Yeah.
to. Yeah, we need more players clearing those, 25. And it is, I would say it is Tanner Braun, Max Holmes now as well.
Mm.
Blick Sabs, Clark even. I think Clark could also really start getting up there. But Tom and Atkins, it's those guys that have been around the AFL system for a while, like Bose, Bruin, Atkins, Max Holmes, those ones that can step up to really start getting that uncontested possessions. But it is a big issue, but I think if they're still getting the quick balls inside 50 and still being those scores and still being really effective inside 50, then might not be as a glaring issue as we might think at the moment. So I'm not super worried. The only worrying part is if they don't kick the goals and if they keep butchering
'Cause then you're
simple
screwed.
set shots, and then you're screwed. As if you're not effective in front of goal and don't have as much possession as the opposition, it's going to be really tough. So it's one of those situations where inside 50 set shots, especially set shots, really need to be a lot more accurate because I think their accuracy last year in front of goal was pretty horrendous. It was 52.7 this match. So Essendon's 51. But I think we had how many inside 50s? 55 to 47. So still getting a lot of inside 50s, but with that amount of inside 50s, you would expect the efficiency to be a bit higher. So yeah, I think the major, more glaring issue would be the goal scoring, because if that doesn't get fixed and we're not getting uncontested ball, then it's just going to put all that pressure back on the defense. But yeah, I do agree with you. It does need to be fixed up. Does need to be addressed. But if at the moment, if it starts off well and we start kicking goals, like convert the goals, then it may not be a major issue, but you don't want it to be one of those issues later on where it's like, oh, we knew about this all year. Let's try and fix it now.
Yeah.
It is one of those ones that needs to be
And
addressed right now and get fixed before it's too late.
yeah, and I think you make a good point. Like, obviously, there's a few players in that mix who can step up and average those 20 plus disposals. But I think the point you made there about Tom Atkins is a good one in that this will be year number 6. And he's gone from, 17 disposals a game in 2021, 18 disposals per game in 2022, 19.4 in 2023. I think he can make that jump. And I think he is a player that needs to probably make that jump. I think 2022, you could get away with players like Atkins averaging like 18 touches a game and having those higher tackle numbers, say. But now we need someone, and Atkins is a great person to do it, to make that jump to really help Danger out. Because again, all offseason we talked about that being Cam Guthrie, and now we just don't know. We do not know.
Yeah.
So we have to almost, as fans, prepare ourselves for the idea that you might not see Cam Guthrie this year. You might. I don't know. He might come back on schedule, on time, might come back ahead of schedule.
Fingers
But
crossed.
Atkins is a great candidate. I think you're right, Johnny. He's got the experience. He's got the game. His tackle numbers have basically gone up year on year the last 4 seasons. His clearance numbers have gone up.
Yeah.
He averaged 5 clearances a game last season. So I think he can be that player. I want him to be that player. It's nice to know that you've got other guys developing around him. And I like the fact that Geelong have attacked it. They've identified a weakness and they brought in Bruin, Bose last year. They drafted Jai Clark. They've been drafting midfielders. They've been recruiting midfielders. They go and get Sean Manor, who I think look good, but I think
he looked good.
I know I get the impression that he'll be like spend quite a bit of time like in the forward line.
Yeah, I
Maybe
reckon he will be too.
an impact player at some stoppages, but it seems like, I don't know, his
Sort of
body shape and size and seems like a small forward.
feels like, yeah, it feels like they're getting closer to the midfield now that Mannon's in. And I won't mind that. Close he is great. A kick inside 50. He's a great little sneaky kick as well. He's got sort of like a similar idea to Myers. You think he's going to kick one way, but he can just quickly change his direction quite easily. And I don't mind. I reckon that'll be good.
Yep.
Seeing having Close and Myers both being able to deliver inside 50 to Hawkins, Cameron, and the rest. Yeah, I think Todd Atkins is one that can stand up. And I reckon he will. He definitely will. I've got full faith in him. I've got full faith in this Cats team.
I need to wrap up, obviously, the public part of the show. I've got a few concerns around a couple of the players at the fringe of the squad because I don't think there's adequate competition for them for their spot at the moment, and I think it sort of shows. I think the ruck situation's interesting. Stanley, I thought, looked really good in the match sim. To this game, I was less convinced. I thought it was pretty sloppy. He sort of got manhandled quite a bit by Goldstein. I thought Blixarves, even though the raw hit out numbers won't say, he only had 4 hit outs. I sort of think that he looked the better across the course of the game as a ruck. So I don't know about that one. Like, I think at the moment Stanley is going to get the starts like early in the season because they know what his floor is. They know he's not going to be abjectly terrible, but I think there's a definite ceiling probably, and I think we were pretty eyes open about that. Like
Yeah.
that, he has his limitations, but the thing with Conway is you just don't know exactly what you're going to get. So I have a feeling the fan base will probably be a bit frustrated early in the season, say across the first month. If Conway's not in the AFL side, there'll be those grumblings of like, you got to start Stanley, you got to start
Yeah.
Stanley. I think they're just going to be a bit patient with him. Sorry, you got to start Conway. I think they'll be patient. And they'll take a few weeks and see where they're both at. And then if they feel good about Conway's health, he's a player who's also had an injury interrupted start to his career.
Yeah.
I think then they might throw him in, but I don't think it'll be out the gate, but be interesting to see if we're wrong.
If he is. Yeah.
Quick fire one,
agree.
Johnny. Quick fire. Sorry. Shannon Neal.
Or
Thoughts,
Shannon
feelings?
Neal. Yeah, good. I
Mm.
really enjoyed his game. Did what I was hoping he would do. Just chucked his body into contests. There was a couple of times where he missed the ball, just misdirected, missed kick to him. But apart from that, he looked
Mm.
engaged. Looked like he wanted to crash the packs. Nearly got a fantastic mark in the goal square. Got a really good mark in the forward 50. Can't remember what quarter, but I think he kicked a goal.
Mm.
But he missed one as well. But yeah, all the signs that I was hoping to see, we saw. So big tick for me. And also
Yeah,
helps
no,
that
I agree.
one of the commentators said he felt so. What was the word? I can't. What was the word? It was something like unimportant. He's like, you realize how small and unimportant you are when you stand next to Shannon Neal. I was like, oh, that's interesting. So he's packed on the weight,
He's a
packed on the
big,
gains.
yeah, and he's athletic too, which I like in terms of his ability to move. Like he's not just a big lumbering sort of oaf. Like he has
Mm,
he's creative. Like that's something that stands out when you watch him in the VFL. He's like really creative with how he'll tap the ball to a teammate, if it's in open play and just his creativity. Even once the ball hits the deck or he's bouncing around out of his control, he's able to impact the game. Even when he's not marking and kicking goals himself. I'll just end on the thought that Jack Bose had 12 touches in 30% game time. He pretty much came on and played the last quarter, I think. 4 tackles, 12 touches, 3 clearances in 30% game time. I think that's pretty good.
yep.
He's a player that I think, I don't know, could be totally wrong because Geelong have historically been pretty patient with players that they might consider a bit of a project type player. My gut instinct goes important year for Jack Bose. In
Yeah.
terms of, is it a sort of crossroads year? Is it a pivot point in his career? I don't know how the club feels about it, but as a fan, you're wanting to see something more happen. You're wanting to see him do his best stuff more often. But I thought that he cracked in really well. I saw a little bit more of what people were positive about last week, watching him this week. So that's heartening. All right,
Yes.
that's it. That is the recap of Cats
That's it.
v Bombers. We have the first actual week of the AFL men's season starting this week. So that means you need to be watching your feed because the Hoops crew is only just getting started. That's
Yep.
the big thing to take out of this, Johnny, is that we've got lots of stuff happening basically
We do.
daily, and there's new shows coming. I believe you've got you'll have our match recap, obviously tonight, every Monday. Tuesday, you'll have a behind the play episode from Paul James. Wednesday, I think this is the first Wednesday that we're getting Don't Forget Your Tips with Rach Danderfield. So make sure you go and watch that one.
Opening round.
Opening round. Thursday, we won't have a preview, but we'll find something to talk about. This Thursday, we've got our Stonks episode to do, telling you which players to buy Stonks in. Friday, other stuff happening. The last time we met episode now, whether we'll get one of those for opening round, don't know about that. But anyway, the point being, daily stuff happening on the Hoops Crew network. So make sure you subscribe, liking, following, all that sort of stuff. Until next time, though, thanks so much for listening. Thanks for watching. Go Cats!
Go Cats!